Hello friends, Lorika with The Uptake, here with Brian Melendez at the 331 Club at Drinking Liberally. First question, I was wondering, why are the caucuses so important for Minnesota this year?
Well, they're important because Minnesota is early in the process, and because the process is so wide open at this point. Now, when we decided a year ago to reschedule them, to move them a month earlier than they usually were, we were just concerned because we knew that some other states were moving up, and we didn't want the decision to be over by the time they got to us. But on both sides, there's really no clear front runner in either party. So it's really critical for Minnesota right now to be in this mix where the presidential race is still wide open. Minnesota's votes are going to matter in a way that they probably would not have if we were a month later down the road.
So why did Minnesota not get their delegates stripped like some other states for moving up?
There's a window within which you are allowed to move. The states who have gotten their delegates stripped moved earlier than the beginning of that window. We moved to the very front legal part of the window. Actually, there were people pushing for us to move even earlier, and I think the consensus was, you know what, we would like for our delegates to matter, so we're not going to play that game.
Okay. Why does Minnesota have a caucus system rather than a primary?
There's some interesting history to that. I suppose the generic answer is that it's part of the agrarian populism coming out of the Grange movement in the late 19th century. But in fact, caucuses weren't instituted until after World War II, and this is the story that I've heard. Now, this is before my time. I wasn't born yet, so I can't vouch for it. But the story goes that in the 1948 election, the Republican leadership wanted to support one candidate, but another candidate did well in the polls, and it was the same for the Democrats in the 1956 election. So the party leaders decided, you know what, let's set up a caucus system where there's going to be an actual exchange and dialogue and more of a chance to talk about this. Rather than doing it the old-fashioned way. So the caucuses actually got set up after World War II, even though they have their roots in the populist movement of the late 19th and early 20th century. Is that enough of an answer for you?
Yeah. So are primaries actually older than caucuses?
That's a good question, because in most states, primaries came in... It was the McGovern Commission that got set up after the 1968 Democratic Convention that ushered in most of the primaries. So there were some primary states as far back as the 1910s. Bob LaFollette and the progressive movement in Wisconsin generated a lot of primaries around the country. But it wasn't until the 1972 Democratic election that most states switched over to primaries. Before that, it was smoke-filled rooms and some primaries.
Great. Well, thank you
All right.
so much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks,
it's nice meeting you.